Shaban, it's your turn.
So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this exciting panel about gaming. It's a subject that I like. I'm working on decentralized games since 8 years, using multi-chain since 5 years. So this is a topic that I really like, and I'm very excited to hear about what our panelists have to say on one of the this big challenge. So I would like you first to quickly introduce yourself and also tell us your view and state of art of interoperability in gaming.
My name is Philip. I'm a business developer at ChainSafe, leading all our products initiatives. Recently, I was at Polkadot Decoded, and I think what really caught my eye was the talk from, I think, John, from CEO from Mythical Games. And there I saw a real potential of interoperability, not necessarily between layer ones and chains, but cross ecosystems, meaning or cross-platform interoperability, specifically Unity and Unreal, and like mobile and desktop and whatnot. So I'm not necessarily too like bullish on interoperable future in games in between different ecosystems or blockchains, but more on a platform level.
Hey guys, I'm Gator. I'm a huge gamer since 30 years, I think, as everybody here. So first, I have a big video game background. After that, I'm a Fala Network senior ambassador and Polkadot ambassador. And I really enjoy these topics because gamification will be a key to the adoption of the blockchain. I think now we are still at the beginning of this process because it looks really hard. I'm not a developer, but I think you can confirm that, to create link between different games, different blockchain, to provide utility and facility to the players.
Should we call you Gator, right? Okay.
So I'm Thomas LETAN. I'm still working at Nomadic Labs on Tezos. So we have a few games on chain. We have a partnership in particular with Ubisoft, and we have some indie editors that have chosen Tezos as their layer one for games, and we are very excited for that. We also have a new technology of layer 2 that we think can unlock a few use cases with games and potentially to bring more things inside the I would say the blockchain runtime environment compared to having just the assets or something like that. Now, in terms of interoperability, there are potentially various challenges to address indeed. To start with, between the games of a given editor, and not to speak about between editors and between blockchains. So there is a lot of avenue, and not clear which one will be targeted first. I guess it depends on economic pressure or economic challenges and things like that. But yeah, it's at the very least, it's something that we will most certainly see developed in the future years.
Yeah, I'm also still Shion and still working at Polkadot Labs. I think for me, also having been a lifelong gamer, there's always been this promise of this, I guess I could call it the omniverse of games, where sort of all games share their assets, they share mechanics, they share, I want to say, tools or what have you. And of course, blockchain has the potential to realize this vision, but at the same time, it's the problem here is that gamers themselves always shut down these kinds of ideas as they're brought up by game studios. For instance, we've seen Ubisoft, we've seen Gameloft try to sell their gamers NFTs, and they just review bomb them on Steam that this is a shit game. So it's a tricky thing. I think first off, we need to probably rebrand what the NFT thing is, and refocus and reshape how gamers look at this world that can be created by blockchains, this interoperable gaming world, as something that they should actually look forward to. So that's just my 2 cents.
Hi, I'm still David. I still work at NEAR, and but I've also built. It's my third L1 I've worked on, and I run the sort of emerging technologies department at NEAR. So I basically do our research and development to some extent. The state of games on the blockchain, I think, is a lot of promise, but I think right now it isn't great. I sort of rate the quality of a blockchain game or a sort of Web3 game by, first of all, it has to be really fun. Secondly, it has to be easy to use. Third, it has to sort of have some sort of interesting tradable asset you get something out of having and doing something interesting with. And then finally, at the bottom, least important thing is it has to be decentralized. So I think currently still the best Web3 game is Team Fortress 2, as it fits all those criteria really well, and it doesn't quite decentralize. So I'd love to see sort of, but the beauty of it is that you can have small companies engage in big ecosystems. So you don't have to be a giant company like Valve to do something really interesting and fun. You can all do little fun things and then do little collaborations. And I think that's where the state of the art's coming. Indie companies acting like bigger companies.
Thank you. This is Luca Cermelli. I work for Horizon Labs. We build on the Horizon network. I've been with Horizon for 6 years now, so it has been a long ride, a great ride actually. And I started as a country lead representing for Italy. Then I was wearing the hat of the project manager embedded in the engineering team, then corporate strategy manager. Now I'm the product marketing manager, which gives me the ability to research a lot in the interoperability field in general, but also interoperability within gaming in particular. So the state of the art, I do agree a lot with Gator from Fala Network about the fact that we are still at the beginning, so nothing is set on stone yet, right? It's still an exploratory phase to me, and we are exploring pretty much two things, right? One is cross-chain games, and the other one is the transfer of in-game assets from one video game to others. While doing that, we are starting to witness the presence of big names in the gaming industry taking a step. For example, an Unreal Engine is somehow trying to shape the standard and the protocol to create NFTs and stuff like that. So that's pretty exciting, but nothing is set on stone yet. And I do believe that the ultimate judges will be the end users, and the buyer persona of this industry is players, right? So the video game players will be the ones saying, hey, this is working very well, this is not good for our gaming experience, so you need to change that. We are still in this phase, so exploratory, but with the big names coming along.
Hello everyone, thanks for the invitation. So my name is Marin. I'm the CTO and co-founder of The Great Escape, which is a game based on Moonbeam Parachain. I've been a developer for 15 years and a gamer for a bit more, I would say. Super excited to talk about interoperability with you. My point of view on the current stage of interoperability is stage 0, I would say. It's a bit like trying to build cars before roads. While we still haven't such great games on the blockchain, we already want to connect them and create common standards, while blockchain are still barely talking to each other. So from my own opinion, we're building something quite interesting. Interoperability is the way to go. It's totally linked to the Web3 ideals, but in fact, you have technical and philosophical barriers that are going against the ideals of interoperability.
So I will continue on what you just said. So for you, interoperability is not a good idea, or do we have some other things to fix? Is it what you're saying?
No, I'm saying it's a great idea, but it's an ideal. And to achieve that, it will require that the industry players will commonly go towards the same direction. And in such a capitalistic environment, I doubt it will happen quite easily.
I would like to ask Gator to react on that, as you're a big player.
I'm totally agree with that. Even if we don't speak about blockchain, we've got some problem in the game industry. For example, if you are a PC gamer, how many launcher do you have? How many launcher do you have?
0 at this point, but I had 5
Yeah.
when I had PC.
I think I've got 5 or 6, yeah. So there is basic things to solve at the beginning. And after that, we can try to imagine, because we got to anticipate all the technology or what it will bring to the users and to the industry. But yeah, definitely it will be something huge. But first, we got to try to stay focused on the roots to create good interface, low latency, and good games.
Yeah, Philip.
Yeah, can I just add? I mean, I agree, and I think that the reason why we don't have interoperable games is not that blockchain is not there or whatever. I think that if developers wanted that and gamers wanted that, we could have had interoperable games 10 years ago. And I mean, as I said, the reason is not blockchain. Blockchain is not scaling or having different layer 1s or layer 2 or whatever. It makes not so much sense to have interoperable games from the developer's perspective and the capitalistic nature of the industry or the world. So yeah, I'm not sure how much blockchains and the blockchain technology can help there.
So Thomas, the solution maybe that would be everybody using Tezos.
You're free to try. We actually so as I said, like we already have some games on the network, and we are actively searching in this use case. Not strictly speaking, to be honest, in terms of interoperability, but starting from understanding what the blockchain can bring to the gamer experience and what can be the value in doing that. So it's still a lot of interesting question to answer.
And Sean, I know Polkadot's ideology is really interconnecting things. So do you agree with what have been said, or do you have another view?
No, I think that's, yeah, it's already been said that interoperability is still in its nascent stage. Blockchain games are also in its nascent stage, and interoperable games, it's a cool idea, but these two things have to sort of succeed first before you can now start to combine the two.
Okay, and so this one for your neighbor, David. Then let's say there is a game that works very well on Ethereum, for example, and there is a community, and you want probably the game to migrate or be compatible at a new chain. So is it not just possible to offer to users the choice to own their whatever they have to own on Ethereum and something on another chain?
So in the not too distant future, chains should be able to do attestations, which is to sign that something is the case. and to come from a well-known signature. So, for example, if you had your NFT marketplace on Ethereum, hopefully one day in the future, that NFT market could sign a payload saying, hey, at this date, this person owns this. And then you could safely pass it to the other chain without actually having to move the asset off. And this sort of allows you to do a sort of query response model or have a sort of updating signature, which sort of says, at this point in time, this is the state of the world, which would give you sort of cross-chain read access. And then when you do stuff like trading NFTs across different platforms, you effectively have to put it into a smart contract that acts like an escrow account. And then you sort of move it in, move it out, using what we call, we have a very, very complex term for it, which I've since forgotten. These technologies are coming out. It should make it much easier in the not too distant future, but Ethereum will always be a laggard, and we'll have an EIP 15,000 at some point, which will give us the ability to do this. So yeah, hopefully one day.
So to build on top of that, Luca, that you also have an ecosystem chain. Is there an incentive from a blockchain builder to keep people in their ecosystem? So to not have interoperability, so this way the player don't leave and use some other token, other chains.
So I think interoperability can be interesting for players, right? But not all of them, because there are many different kind of video games. Video game is a big word, right? You can mean video game for PlayStation 5, you can refer to mobile games, browser games, casino, online game kind of games, and so on. It's not going to be interesting for all of them, but to some of them, yes. And I do believe that for developers or developing company, because ultimately, I think the vast majority of players play video games being developed by big companies, right? I think it can be very interesting for them to allow interoperability kind of protocols and systems because, well, for example, for advertising reason, if you allow in-game assets to flow from one game to another one, then you have got free promotion. Imagine the second or third or fourth video game where your in-game assets flow to becomes a killer application. Well, then your in-game assets that are still on the original game will appreciate in value. Your video game will become more and more interesting and famous to the community of players and so on. So I think there are many benefits in doing that. However, it's also to be considered the fact that not all the players are willing to play these sort of Web3 kind of games or Web3 gaming experiences within their games. There are actually a lot of video game players that believe that this is gonna ruin their own experience, right? So it's not going to be something that everybody likes. It's actually something that I would say a good market niche of players would hate. So the game developers will have to choose carefully whether or not to provide these sort of features within their games, and they have reasons to do so, and they have also reasons to avoid doing so.
So it made me think, then what is the reason to add a blockchain in a game? Is it to satisfy the community, the holder, the token holder, or is it to create an experience for a gamer, both? So then what is the reason then to use blockchain? Maybe Philip, with you.
Honestly, I'm in full transparency. I'm not the biggest fan of the Web3 gaming at this current state. I'm a gamer, as we all are, for most of my life, and I just see this like user experience and the friction currently is just way too big. And whenever I speak to any gamer or game developer that's outside Web3, so like a Web2 game developer or gamer, they mostly literally run out of the room when somebody mentions NFTs or blockchain because there have been so many scams. But the technology itself has a big potential. Somebody already mentioned, I think in the previous panel, that we have to stop using the names that are scaring people off. NFTs, blockchain, Web3, that's completely not, like, really not important for gamers. Because I don't know what my World of Warcraft or these technologies stored on or whatever, what signature schemes or whatever are being used for me to sign on the servers. So first of all, we have to remove all that, like, big words and language. But honestly, I think it offers a new potential for on-chain games. And yeah, I mean, I think it's really a niche audience, the Web3, like a really, really niche audience. But hopefully we can see in the future better UX, which will lead to better games being developed, which will lead then to more gamers adopting Web3 games. And just to go back to the decoded talk from the CEO of Mythical, is they absolutely nowhere they mention any Web3 or NFT or any that jargon. So it's just a game that at some points and some parts use Web3 and blockchain technology in the backend. So I think that's the right way forward.
You wanted to react, David?
I think that the trick is to just not tell them, but just have cool experiences. To agree, which is, yeah. I think that I was trying to think very heavily. I think I was squinting at you, perhaps. There was a Nintendo game many, many years ago where you could, you'd have a cartridge in. If you took the cartridge out and put a different game in at some point in time, you could do some sort of cool hidden part of the game. And those kind of experiences are great. So, you know, you sort of have, you know, don't tell the user they have a blockchain account, just sign them in with an OAuth account, have it in the background, and if they notice that you played this other game and they have some sort of relationship with this developer, some sort of interesting thing pops up, you know, sort of, if you complete Dark Souls, you get a car that's really good at rolling on Rocket League, I don't know. And I think that stuff, people will really appreciate, a sort of serendipity. I think you might know the name of the game.
Yeah, I mean, no, not the game. Sorry, just to add, I completely agree. And I think that cross-game interoperability is important, but maybe within a single IP that makes more business sense. So I can completely see that Activision or Microsoft, whatever at this point, releases a game and all of 5 of their new games are interoperable and you can have skins from this game in this game. That makes a whole bunch of sense. But that cross-IP is kind of tricky. And I think, just to reiterate what I said earlier, this is not happening not because of blockchain, but because it has little business sense.
Marin, maybe, why did you build a game on chain?
Yeah, actually, I think there are a very good reason to build an on-chain game. I'm gonna give you a few ones, even a small story. So Hybrid Draw, he's gonna play World of Warcraft, and after spending thousands of hours on his wizard, he said, "Oh, I don't want to play. Maybe I'm gonna sell my account." And then Blizzard Activision arrived, and he said, "No, you're not allowed. Your wizard is ours," and that's bullshit. That's why Web3 is giving back the power, and I think we need to emphasize on the ownership over assets. For instance, on my community, on the Great Escape, players are able to rent and lend assets, and I think that's the basis of the blockchain. We're here to talk about transactions, so what type of transaction are suitable for gamers? That's maybe the question we should ask ourselves.
I mean, I agree, and that's a good point, but that's not the selling point for a game. A gamer won't play a game only because if the game developer is whatever dies and their servers are dead, they can move on with their NFTs. That's not the selling point for a game. Selling point for a game is a good game experience, good whatever lore, good graphics, good mechanics, or whatever turns like you think is good. But me being able to, if Blizzard Entertainment at some point collapses, I can move my level 70 mage out of the ecosystem. That's not necessarily a reason for me to start playing the game.
And I also think having a Web3-based game shouldn't mean that developers can't prevent certain actions. You know, obviously, there may be, you know, sort of if you can buy, you know, most games are to some extent grindable in a sort of relatively quick and automatic way. And if you having some sort of fancy gun is a status symbol showing that I put a lot of time in, I can see why even, sort of there is a collective good for the game in not having these things being freely tradable. So I think just because the benefit of Web3 is that you are upfront about what the trade-offs are. So the problem with your story was the change in the idea of what was fair, not so much the actual preventing of the activity, I think.
I like your point you just mentioned, but I would say that Web3 is also about having the choice. So maybe it's not for you, but maybe for some Turkish players, they will be interested in earning $5 per week, and that's a very good reason to play also, even if I'm not the play-to-earn advocate.
So, as I can understand, there's different kind of targets and audience. There is games that please a community, like a blockchain and the users, and there is games that are for mainstream or are targeted for really the game experience. And there, the blockchain should be transparent. The experience of using the blockchain should be transparent from what you said. So the main question is, there are many different solutions right now to tokenize, to build games, and we're talking about interoperability. And of course, everybody will say, my solution is the best, but then with all this possibility, so who actually should decide which technology to use? Is it the developer or the customer? Who has the choice?
I think if you go to the customer and ask them whether they'd use an EDSA curve or a BLS curve, they might give you a bit of a blank look. It's the experience. The customer cares about the experience, the developer cares about the technology, and the developer obviously cares about the experience, so they care about the technologies required to build that experience. So absolutely the developer.
So ultimately, if we consider the fact that video games are being produced by video game companies, right? I mean, I don't even see how the customer could influence that, right? I mean, the customer can, obviously the companies making video games should have a target kind of customer, the buyer persona, and if they believe that their buyer persona is somehow interested in Web3 gaming experiences, then yes, for sure, they will be more keen on the idea of integrating blockchain into their web games, but ultimately it's the developer's experience and responsibility in taking this decision. I would say also that these kind of companies are huge, right? I mean, I used to be working for a video game company back in 2014, so it was 10 years ago. In Germany, it was 5,000 employees kind of company, so quite huge. We were building browser games because that was the era of browser games and then the beginning of mobile games. And we had all the traditional departments like HR, legal, compliance, whatever, finance, and so on. Plus the typical people that you would have in a video game company, like game producers, game designers, and so on. It's their responsibility to do so, and I hope they only integrate blockchain technology because it can actually make the player's experience better rather than to be able to claim they are integrating Web3 kind of experience within their games.
I will share a personal experience with our game, Spells of Genesis. It was first built on Bitcoin. Then there was a movement player telling us you should move to Ethereum, it's cheaper and faster. And then we decided not to move, but to have dual compatibility and to give the choice to the user. And actually they changed because at some point everyone wanted Ether, and then in 2021 everyone wanted Bitcoin back because it was legendary, it was old and unique. So here maybe for Sean, the giving the choice of for the user What do you think of that? Is there a market? So should he be aware in a way or another?
I mean, this goes back to the point I made on the previous panel, and that the tribalism in the space is just not going to go away. And so, giving the users the ability to pick their tribe will turn out to be a net positive for game development. Like, for instance, I play a lot of Battlefield, and if, for instance, the DICE decided, hey, because we made a partnership with Tron, you're going to give me NFTs on Tron for my participation in the game, I'm not going to care. Right, but if you said, "Hey, you're going to give me my NFTs on Polkadot," that lights up my brain, and it's like, yes. So I think you're right that there will need to be an option given to the users as to where they want to participate in this Web3 gaming industry.
Other important question is that how do we control the supply of things that are created and the intellectual property when it goes to migrating chains? For example, am I allowed to burn a token from an artist and reissue on another chain that I find better? Do we still have the link between the creation and then the new token? This is fundamental for interoperability, so I would like you all to react on that. How do we keep the possession? Can I migrate myself if I want a token and preserve the intellectual property, for example? I'll start with Philip.
Honestly, I'm not like a technical guy, so I don't know how to do that. But I don't actually think from the philosophical perspective that if you burn on one chain and re-mint on the other chain, then I'm not sure if that's an NFT anymore. Maybe similar like native platforms that are NFT issuance platforms that are native to two chains or to many chains. And if you mint an NFT, then it's minted on all of chains, but you can use it only on one. It's unlocked on one, locked on all the other chains. And when you want to transfer it to another chain, then it's locked and transferred on unlocked on the other chain or something like that. But honestly, burning and then minting an NFT on the other chains, for me, it sounds like it's not the same thing anymore. But I might be wrong. Happy to hear.
I can quickly jump in here, actually. And this has kind of been a topic of our research at Polkadot Labs, is interoperability beyond just like minting and burning. Like, how can we prove the existence of something on one chain to another chain without moving this data? We call this storage proofs, and it's a part of our interoperability protocol called ISMP. So I can imagine you have, or I have this, Battlefield NFT on Polkadot, and maybe there's some whitelist that's being given to people who own this NFT on Ethereum. I don't need to move this NFT anywhere. I just present these, we call them storage proofs of ownership of this NFT on Polkadot, and I present that to Ethereum, and that just gives me access to whatever it is I was trying to do in the first place.
So I'm going to sound like a broken record, but there's this very, very normal technology you can use that allows you to have hidden private keys inside of a smart contract, and it can work on pretty much any chain. So when you have this, what you do is you have an NFT. You should never take the NFT off the place it lives, because it probably has, if you have sort of easy to move around NFTs, they have to be lowest common denominator. They can't do interesting things. They have to be whatever the minimal subset of NFTs is on the collector platforms. So you want to keep the NFT in its sort of native habitat. And what you do is you transfer ownership of that. Well, you can do an attestation proof, but also you can transfer ownership of the NFT on, say, Ethereum to a smart contract on, for example, the NEAR protocol. So because the NEAR protocol holds private keys, it holds accounts on Ethereum. Then you send it there. The game can check the Ethereum chain using a regular relay to see if that NFT is in the right place. And if it is, they then have the ability to control it. So that means, so potentially you could have a sword from a game in Ethereum, use it on a game in the NEAR protocol. You could break that sword in a rock, and the NEAR protocol smart contract could say, I am now going to burn this NFT, which is kind of interesting. So it's about giving control of your NFT, which lives in its native place, to a smart contract in another protocol. And that's how you do good interoperability, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do agree that it's not a best practice to burn an NFT on a collection and remint it on another one. I mean, ultimately, you would destroy the value of that NFT. Imagine you have a Bored Ape Yacht Club 1, 2, 3, 4 item. You burn it, you recreate it on another collection. You have completely destroyed its value, and the new one that you have just minted will be seen just like a fake replica of it, right? So with no value. While that is technically possible for sure, and you can even port the metadata associated to that NFT with the newly created NFT on the newly created collection, because until some years ago that was not even possible, but now it is. It's not a good practice, I think, and I do agree with my neighbors here that it would be best to keep the original NFTs where it is on the original collection, and maybe using a bridging system like, for example, Axelar is another player that is building something similar, right, that allows you to keep it where it is, and thanks to the fact that it keeps synchronizing the asset within time, you can actually call it and use it in brackets on another somewhere else and use the NFT's capabilities somewhere else. That's, I think, a better practice. Is it the ultimately best practice? I'm not sure, but I do believe that thanks to the fact that protocols are trying to solve this issue right now, we will soon come to the point where this is not an issue anymore.
First, I'd like to say, on a technical point of view, it's not a problem. It's technically possible. ERC are only standard, so you can teleport tokens. Protocols are doing it pretty well. But it's not because you can do it that you should do it, of course. And I would say it depends on boundaries. What was planned to be possible? What was thought by the dev? And for instance, I would say it's a bit like bringing a surfboard to the mountains. You won't complain to the surfboard engineers that it's not working well because it's not made to go on the snow. That's a bit how I see it. And to add something, I would say that the best practice is something I witness more and more. It's called omni-chain NFTs. Something made possible by stuff like Layer 0. And for instance, you have one collection splitting over several chains. For instance, you have 500 on Moonbeam, 500 on Arbitrum, on BSC, etc., etc. And because this is part of the plan, it makes sense. It's not someone lonely on his computer bridging a token to somewhere. No, this is part of a plan. And the plan has to be made by the dev, I would say.
Yeah, very, very interesting. The wrapping and the ability to wrap some token into other chains. I'm hoping to see developments on that point. So it brings the question: as an industry, what should we do together to improve all this this part? We talked about wrapping. Are there other good practice that we should do? Everyone in their own chain or own protocol try to work together to do something? David?
Just to be incredibly pernickety, we can't actually wrap things. We can only... It's a very nuanced difference, it's unfortunately, because we can only send messages to a chain like Ethereum. We can withdraw, but we can't prove a deposit, which is a very sort of odd problem until Ethereum has the same sort of signing technology. Then they can send the signed messages the other way. So we can talk, but we can't listen, which is something I'm pretty good at already.
Actually, going to disagree. You can actually listen through storage proofs.
Yeah, or any like client. I guess I'm talking more in general. You can talk to any chain, but you have to write specific code in order to sort of receive the stuff back, which is. So yeah, wrapping makes sense. Keeping its local place, allow a diversity of entities to grow. It's the best way of doing it. Sorry, that wasn't much of an answer.
And Thomas, what are you doing to enable that or commit to do?
So I can have a very technical answer in the sense that I think we have on Tezos, we have a primitive that is pretty interesting from this regard, which is called the ticket. So the ticket is probably a very bad name actually, but it's basically a primitive that allows you to create an object that you know cannot be duplicated and can be shared. So it can be kept or it can be given, but it cannot be duplicated. And the idea of tickets was basically to break this idea that you see of having one smart contract acting as a ledger, getting all the balances, but rather having a way for smart contracts to exchange assets in a safe way, in sense of non-duplicatability, non-forgeability, and things like that. And we have spent quite some effort at the Tezos protocol layer to enforce this property. So the smart contract language itself is supposedly preventing you to duplicate these things. And even if there is a bug in the interpreter of the smart contract language, which unfortunately happens, like there are bugs in software most of the time, we have a second layer, a more dynamic one that allows to detect forgery of tickets. And we could imagine potentially, and this is me guessing really, but we have this property of having the way to really give property of an asset from one smart contract to another, and we could imagine potentially having protocol standards, things like that, that could enable that at the blockchain level. But yeah, this would be another fit for the reasons that have been mentioned in terms of getting an answer back and things like that. It would be a challenge, and it's already a challenge for our layer 2 solution in the sense that these tickets we can send them to a smart rollup, so a layer 2 of Tezos, and it can be sent back. But one thing that can happen also is that you send a ticket to a smart rollup, and then for any reason on the smart rollup there is a bug, and the ticket is dropped. And from the perspective of the layer 1, there is no easy yet to know that this has been dropped. And so you would end up in a situation where the layer 1 thinks a ticket is owned by a smart rollup, and the smart rollup has forgotten that or something like that. And this is related to the fact that you don't have an easy way to get an answer, or at least you can lose some information with this asynchronous mechanism. So yeah, it's doomed to be challenging at least.
Okay, pretty exciting to see how it evolved. Gator, what do you commit to do?
That's a really good question, because I think that standardization is not always good or bad. That depends how you use it, but maybe we need some standardization for that, and it will come when I think the biggest company in video game will be associated with blockchain, and sometime the market will simply impose a standard. So I'm not...
It will come from the market.
I think, yeah.
But some people need to have idea and like to ignite some. Okay. And Philip, you are building bridges already between EVM substrate and EVM. Are you thinking to also consider other chains?
We are at some point. I mean, bridges are not the only thing we're building. Since this is the gaming panel, we are also building the gaming SDK, the marketplace, and then a lot like of the gaming related stuff. Just to add on the point about what needs to happen for this industry in the future, I think the sooner that we all, I mean, this is a really, really new industry, and every project, every game pretty much has their own standards and their own protocols, which kind of is not scalable. And probably there won't be one single protocol and one single standard to rule them all. Probably it will be a couple, but at least we should, the sooner that we, as industry leaders, come together on a table and agree on certain standards, that's better for the industry. At least that's my perspective. And I agree that soon biggest maybe IP in the market will be a blockchain game. Not necessarily in a year or two, but soon. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Perfect, exciting stuff ahead. I think we are out of time. Do we have time for closing thoughts? Okay, so do you, if anybody of you have some closing thought or things you want to share about the topic?
I have something to say. Looking at the age of the speakers, I guess you all remember pretty well Adobe Flash Player, installing the extension on your computer, enjoying pretty fun games. And nowadays, I doubt you still have it on your browser because it's not maintained anymore. So I think it's a good example. Now we're all playing using HTML5, and it's the survival of the fittest. The best tech will win, and I don't know which protocol it will be.
Yeah, that's a great example. What can I say? I said before that I used to work for a video game company 10 years ago, browser games, hundreds of thousands of players worldwide playing our browser games. Well, I witnessed to like veterans kind of players that were investing years of their life into our games to grow their empires or kingdoms, these kind of things. And also investing a lot of money, actually, sometimes in those kind of games that were free to play, pay to win, basically. And after having invested so much time of their life and so much money, they were maybe transitioning to another game, right? Because after 5 years, for example, that's natural. That's the way it works. And the fact that they were losing completely their investment was something obviously not good to them, right? They were trying to sell illegally their account, which was obviously stopped by the company operations, and they were trying to, you know, rebuild their fame on the forums online when joining a new game, starting from level 0. I think that with interoperability with gaming, this is actually going to change a lot. This is actually going to benefit them a lot. Just to, you know, highlight a use case there, they will be able to bring with themselves the hardly achieved in-game achievements or certificates for having played so many hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, for having obtained that very rare dragon or stuff like that. So this is actually going to be very beneficial for them, as well as this will be appreciating the in-game assets they have hardly achieved and so on. So I do see so many use cases over there, maybe because I was a part of the industry itself, that I'm very, very bullish on this. Interoperability is, to me, one of the most interesting things, especially in gaming, and I just wanted to share that. And by the way, thank you for having us. It's a very great event that you have organized over here.
Just like to say, somewhat irrelevantly, one of my side projects is a blockchain-hosted Flash portal where anyone can fork any Flash game, and they're very small and they live on the storage space on a blockchain. It's the perfect use case for blockchains. No, I think that blockchain games are going to happen not at all and then all at once is what I think. I think one group of games will find success in sharing things between them. They'll have a model people like, and the gaming industry is governed by fads. I mean, how many Souls-like games are there out right now? You'll have a couple of games who find the model that people love, people will love it, and they'll either everyone will try and build their own little worlds, or people will just try and jump into that world and get involved. And I think once it exists, people will wonder why we didn't do it sooner. And who knows when that'll happen, though.
Any closing thoughts, Sean?
If you want to build a game on Tezos, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Okay, I think they deserve a big round of applause. Thank you for our panelists.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Nice. I'm sure Web3 gaming will pave the way to new cross-chain applications. Perfect. So we are reaching the end of this 3-day event. David is joining me on the stage. I think Gator should stay here. Thank you, guys. It was great. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Merci.
So this one is functioning good. Okay, so we close this main stage now with big thanks to all the speakers, also all the attendees that made this event a great success. Thanks a lot. Big thanks also to Harold, because Harold was here as a speaker. He comes from Belgium. Harold is entrepreneur in the blockchain area in Belgium. His company is named B Blockchain. Yeah. But he has also co-founded Wildchain. Wildchain is a blockchain hub that supports education and evangelization of blockchain in Belgium. And thanks to have joined us to animate this main stage.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Something really important about next edition, you know, it's the second edition of Paris.com. Definitely, it will be impossible for us to organize a new one in the middle of July next year, because Olympic Games. It means impossible to people to join and Paris and to book some hostels. So I would say about Paris.com, the future is a surprise. But there will be a future to the Paris.com, maybe with another name, we don't know at the moment. I would also thanks, because it's important, all my ambassadors, because you know this event is organized by the Polkadot Francophonie community. So it means the group of ambassadors of Polkadot in the French-speaking countries. And Gator is here also because he supports a lot all the community, all the event we organize together. And we will also thanks all the ambassadors on the 9th stage, and maybe Gator, you could invite all the people to join the 9th stage, the 9th floor, sorry.
Yeah, we can all meet up in the 9th floor to close this great event and to have a last part of networking together, because before we all get back to where we live. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this, and see you later.
Great. No. That was the final words, I think. Thank you, everyone. See you around.